But they are surviving. And they're still there, even though there is a push to keep them down. That's happening right now. I was last there in 2019. I know Kemet. And I know the current situation in the country. And so that's why when I heard that Jada Pinkett Smith had claimed, as she had done and did it very well, that she was going to do a black Cleopatra. And then there was an outcry. I asked myself, who would cry? Who would be outraged at this? Who would see this as a problem? Why would this be even contested? And that's why I said, first of all, the people who would contest it, they don't know anything about the peopling of Egypt, number one. Even the people there, you know, sometimes people can live in a society and don't know who are the people, who were the people. If I were to ask you right now in Philadelphia, if I were to ask people in Philadelphia, who were the people here, the indigenous people here 500 years ago? Most people wouldn't know the Lenape. They never heard of the Lenape. They think they've been here. Their people came from here. You know what I mean? They think, oh, we've been here so long, our people must have been here forever. Or they say, oh, no, if we were not here, then the Europeans were here. Wait a minute. The Lenape were here. So you got to acknowledge land. And so you do land acknowledgement. That's the first order of integrity, the first order of humility of any people who are existing in some other land. Is the first order is land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Lenape. Now you can also acknowledge labor. The African people came here and labored and made this country, built it. You see, you can do that. But you gotta have land acknowledgement. And the outcry against Jada Pinkett Smith's Cleopatra is that the people don't want to do land acknowledgement. That's the first thing they don't want to do. They don't want to acknowledge that Egypt in ancient time was a black country. Cheikh Anta Diop said that, and he proved it over and over again. In 1973, UNESCO had a conference in Cairo, and they invited over 70 people, intellectual scholars who studied Egypt, to come to Cairo and to discuss the peopling of ancient Egypt. When they left that conference, it was pretty clear to everybody that the work that was done by Cheikh Anta Diop and his mentee, Théophile Obenga at that time, had conclusively proved that the ancient Egyptians were black people. So now why are we coming 2023, we still having an outcry about Egypt? Well, somebody said, well, no, but the outcry is not about Egypt. It's really now about Cleopatra. So we're going to get to Cleopatra in a minute. But the UNESCO conference is very important. And it's very important for people who are listening wherever you are in the world. Go get the book, The African Origin of Civilization. You need that book just to have as a resource to refer to whenever you have a question about ancient African civilization. And of course you can, you have my name, Molefi Kete Asante. You can look up any of my books and it will be very helpful for you. The second thing I want to say, and I have pictures here of Cheikh Anta Diop and Théophile Obenga. Cheikh Anta Diop is on the top. He was a Senegalese scholar, and Théophile Obenga is a Congolese scholar at the bottom of this picture. Now, the representations of ancient Egypt are very interesting because the further you go back in time, the blacker the population of Egypt. So sometimes people go to Egypt right now, today, and they come back. And people have gone with me, and they come back, you know, there's so many people who are light complexion. Where do these light complexion people come from if you say it was a black civilization? Well, it's come through invasion. it come through history. I mean, many of the current people in Egypt are of Arab background. Many of them have Persian background in them. Many people have Greek background. That's true. But the base of the population was black. It was a black African population. And Cheikh Anta used to like to use the word black African. And I said to him, well, why not just African? He said, no, you have to make the point because otherwise people can get confused. If you say it was African population, say black African. Theophile Obenga says the same thing, black African. And you have to say that because if you don't say that, then people think, well, maybe there's some other kind of Africans. He says, no. That's why he called it Negro African. These are black people. Just like the Senegalese. That's who they were. Just like the people in Niger. Just like the people in Darfur. That's who they were, you see? So now, when you get that information, then you have to say, well, the population changed. Yeah, populations change. They change a lot. The people in Mexico are not the same people that were there 1,000 years ago. The people in Canada are not the people who were there 500 years ago. Populations change like that. And that's possible. It's possible to see that. And that's why you need to understand that reality. And I was in a museum, in the Cairo Museum, the old museum. They got a new one now. The old museum in Cairo. And someone saw this statue on your left of Tutankhamun, King Tutankhamun, and they said, "Why is he black?" Well, as the guy explained, because he was black. What are you talking about? Why is he black? But the idea is that what we have is a racialized thinking about African people. That somehow African people cannot be who they are. And this is the same issue in Sudan. I'm telling you, it's the same issue in Sudan. It is, we don't want to give black people anything. And certainly we're not going to give them this. And so you go in and you take a civilization, you make the civilization yours, and you claim that the other people didn't exist. I mean, it's just like if we were to go to New Mexico or Arizona as African people and take over the Pueblos and claim after 100 years that no Native Americans ever lived here. This is our place. We created these Pueblos, you see? You see? So African Americans and other people who have made thousands of trips, if you take all the people who've gone, and who knows, maybe 1 million African Americans have been to Kemet, to Egypt. So we know the place. We know what we see when we go to the villages in Upper Egypt. We know the people we see. We have friends among them. I had a very good friend who passed away not long ago. His name was Hamdi. He lived on the island of Abu that they call Elephantine Island. You see, African man who was very clear about the history of Egypt and about Kemet. And there are African people throughout the continent, but also throughout that country, through that particular country. So then what is the issue? What is the reason for this outcry? The problem is the hatred of black people. I'm just going to be frank with you. I've never yet met a progressive Arab person who talks against the enslavement of black people. I'm sure there's some. I'm just saying that. I'm sure there's some, but I don't know them. And yet, in Mauritania, in Sudan, you have the enslavement of black people because they're black. That's an animus. Why would you do this? What would be the reason? So what I've tried to do in my discussion today about Cleopatra is to talk to you about what's plausible. And the reason I need to talk to you about what's plausible, that is what's probable, what is likely to be the case, is because no one that I know of can tell you exactly and precisely by evidence whether or not she was dark complexion or light complexion. I don't know anybody who can tell you that. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you this. I can tell you this, that my aim, based on plausibility, is to show you that Cleopatra was African. She was African in culture, and she was probably black in complexion. But I'm saying probably. I'm telling you that I'm going to show you why I think it's probable. It's not probable at all that she was Arab. Listen to this carefully. The people who are having their outcry in Egypt against Jada Pinkett Smith are Arab people. But I guarantee you from evidence and fact and history that she wasn't an Arab. Now, that much I know. I can guarantee you she wasn't German. You can think that she was German as much as you want to, or Scandinavian. She wasn't. She wasn't Russian. It is probable that she had an African mother. Now I want y'all to understand this, particularly my people in Philadelphia. Y'all got to understand this because y'all come here all the time. I have to break this down for y'all so that you will know exactly what the history is. So I'm going to take my time.